Hello and welcome to my video about getting started with Excel. The first thing we need to do is open Excel. If you have a Windows computer, you're probably going to click in the bottom left corner where you will see a list of all the programs or applications that are installed on your computer. And you should find Excel under E, though it might be under M for Microsoft Office. So you might have to look, but you can always use the search. So we're going to open up Excel. And generally speaking, if you're just starting a new project, you're probably going to start with a blank workbook. This is the option that comes up. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. Now, if you were working on a file that you already had saved on your computer, then you would just click open. You can also click the new button, but for now we're just going to click blank workbook. And I'm going to expand this just a little bit. Okay, so this is a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet is different than a Word document, and sometimes I hear people use the terms interchangeably. But a document is something that we create in Word, and when we are in Excel, we are working with a spreadsheet or a workbook. Those both mean the same thing. And if you look up here at the top of your Excel screen, you will see that it says Book 1, because technically we call these workbooks. But sometimes you will hear people say worksheet, and that means the same thing. Alright, so this is our Word window, and take a few moments, if you haven't done this already, on your own computer and open it up and just click around and get familiar with what is where. Most of Office applications have File in the far left-hand side, and most of us are used to clicking on File. And this opens what's called the Backstage area. So it's all the behind-the-scenes things that you can do. Open, close, print, save, get to your settings for Excel, a lot of different options here. So this is called the Backstage. And then we all have the Home tab. So these words across the top are called tabs. And as you click on the different tabs, it will change the ribbon. So this big gray area is called the ribbon. So Home is where you're probably going to spend most of your time. It's the most common tools that we use in Excel are on the Home tab. But Microsoft tries to take the different tools available in Excel and kind of group them together based on what they do. So things like page layout. Well, these are all different tools that are kind of related to each other, so they're grouped together under page layout. Things like changing the margins, changing the orientation, things like that. So if you're not sure where something is, just start clicking on these different tabs. That's what I do, because it's got to be there somewhere. Everything that you can do in Excel is on one of these tabs. It's just a matter of getting used to them and getting used to where things are. So don't feel bad if you're fairly new to Excel, if you have to click around a lot to find things. Now, your ribbon is broken into small little sections. You can see these vertical lines. So these are called groups. So the whole thing is the ribbon. The ribbon is divided into groups. And on each group, you will see various tools that you can use in Excel. Sometimes these groups have a little tiny button in the bottom right-hand corner, and that means if you click on it, you can expand that group to see more options. So for example, let's click on Font. You can see this is called a dialog box, and this has a lot more options for the font. So anytime you see those little buttons in the lower right-hand corner, that means there's more options. For example, here in Styles, you can see that there is no button. That means that there's no additional options there. So these are called groups, and then all of the tools that you see, those are called commands. So for example, we have the bold command, we have italics, and if you don't know what something is, you can see how you can just hover your mouse and it will give you a description of what it is. And again, feel free to click around and play around and see what happens when you do things. You can't mess anything up, and if you do mess it up, just close it and don't save it, open up a new workbook. It's okay to play around and experiment and see what happens. Now underneath our ribbon we have this other bar underneath here. This is not something you would see like in Word or PowerPoint, and this is called the formula bar, and we'll be using this quite a bit as we work through our lessons. Underneath that you will see this large grid area, and that is your sheet, and you will see that there's a whole bunch of small little rectangular shapes here. Each one of these is called a cell, just like that. That's what it's called, cell. So now you get where Excel comes from. Each cell is identified by a letter, that is the column, and the numbers, that is the row. So for example, this cell that I was just typing in is cell D2. We never say 2D. It's always the column and then the row number, and that's how we identify them. The cell that you see with this green border, that is called the active cell. So if I were to start typing something, say I'm going to put some numbers in, they only would go into the active cell. They don't go into any other area on my spreadsheet, just the active cell. So you want to pay attention and make sure you know what cell is active. Now when you are typing things in your cell, I'm going to show you this. So let's type the word Monday. You'll notice that when I type in text, it automatically appears on the the left-hand side of the cell. When you type numbers, they automatically go to the right-hand side. That is because numbers in Excel need to be lined up by the decimal point. Now you might be saying, but you didn't type a decimal point. But we know that the decimal would be after or to the right of the 0. That's where a decimal place would be. And if I were to actually type a number with a decimal, oops, it didn't even show it. I'm going to expand my numbers a little bit to show decimal places. And even this one where I didn't type it in, you can still see the numbers need to be lined up by the decimal place. So numbers always need to be on the right-hand side of your cell. Text doesn't have to be on the left-hand side. That's just the default. You can change this, but you don't ever want to have numbers like this. Okay. That's not how we do things in Excel. The numbers need to always be on the right-hand side, like this. And we'll be going over tools like alignments and things like that. But you just should be aware when you're typing in information into your cell, what happens with it. And the green border means that it is the active cell. Now when we're creating a spreadsheet, one of the things that you want to do is plan your spreadsheet. Before you even sit down and open up Excel, you want to think about what kind of information do I want to put in a spreadsheet. Now Excel is great for keeping information organized. You can type in names and addresses and phone numbers and things like that. That will work. It's, very nice with the columns so that you can keep track of things. But we use it a lot to deal with numbers. So anyone going into business, going into finance, accounting, any of those fields, you definitely want to be very familiar with spreadsheets. But these days, spreadsheets are used across the board in all kinds of different fields. So, don't think like, well, if you're not getting a business degree, you don't need Excel. You're probably going to need it anyways. So it's good that you're taking the class so you have a basic familiarity with it. Usually when we create a spreadsheet, the first row or two will be the title for the spreadsheet. You always want to make sure that you put titles and labels in your spreadsheet so people looking at the information understand what it is that they're looking at. It's not very helpful if you have a spreadsheet full of numbers and nobody knows what they mean. So for example, let's say that I had a bake shop. And I wanted to put down numbers of, what I sold for last month, which would be July. So you can see I'm just typing in some information and I'm not formatting it yet. One of the things you might want to do when you're planning is just think about what information do I want, how do I want to have it organized, what kind of labels do I need. You can always do the formatting later on. You don't have to do that right away. So let's say I have a bunch of different items I sell. Okay, I'm just going to type in a few things here. What else would I be making? Oops. Some of you are like, she's making me hungry doing this. So it's like, oh, yeah. Okay, just a couple things. Now I'm going to adjust this because you can see that the stuff I typed in column A, it looks like it's going over into column B. It's actually not. So like if I click on chocolate chip cookies, you can see that information, if you look in the formula bar, is actually all in cell A6. It just looks like it's kind of, gone over into column B, but it actually has not. And one of the things you can do is adjust the width of the column. So if you take your mouse and put it up here between the A and the B, you'll notice that your mouse, which is normally like a little plus sign, changes to in line with arrows. And I'm going to click with my mouse and hold down, and you can drag to the left or to the right. And I can make this a little wider so that everything fits in column A. Another thing that you can do is a little quicker, which is called auto fit. And you can just come up here and double click, and you can see that it automatically changed the width to the widest thing that was in my spreadsheet. Now I'm going to type in some numbers. And you'll notice again here the numbers are over here on the right hand side like they're supposed to be. And one thing that we can do, since this is sales, we might want to add a $sign. So I don't have to type it in. I can come up to my number group and you see there's a $sign. I can click on it and see it automatically changed. It added the $sign and added 2 decimal places. Okay. Now I can do this to multiple cells at one time by clicking and holding and selecting all the cells that I want to apply that formatting to. So I'm just going to click, and now I've got all that formatting right there. Now you'll notice over here, Karen's Bake Shop. Yeah, that's kind of a sad title way over here on the side. So one thing that I can do is click and select again multiple cells. And I can do something called merge and center. And that means I can merge it together. So those separate 3 cells are now one big giant cell. So see if I click on it, all of these 3 cells are now cell A1. And that is another way that I can add some formatting. I'm going to do this again in row 2. See, and now it's kind of centered over this. So this is just your basic spreadsheet that I put together. So chapter 1 of our textbook, you're going to be putting together a basic spreadsheet, entering in some numbers, doing some formatting, and starting to work with some formulas. All right, thank you very much.